Senator Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your 7 minutes at this time.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
Good afternoon.
A couple of things. I was very excited to come to this meeting today because I was looking forward to learning a little bit more about this piece of legislation, potential legislation that was sent down by the governor, over 100 pages. But as I sat here and listened to all of the testimony, and I heard many of the governor's cabinet members, the governor who sent this down to this institution, as I listened to many of his cabinet members speak about all the things that they saw potentially wrong or could have been altered or could have been changed or should be changed, the question I want to ask the testifiers first: did many of you have any conversation with the governor in regards to the creation of this bill? And if the answer is yes, why weren't all of these changes and suggestions and potential amendments not mentioned to him so that we could have had a much more conducive document to work with?
Senator, is that question being posed to anyone in particular? Or?
Well, I said to any of the cabinet members, because as a senator, I am sitting here trying to do my very best. And as these testimonies pop in one by one and my staff run upstairs to hand them to me, and I'm trying to keep up and understand what all these changes and amendments are. If the governor sent this to this body, all of these suggestions and changes that were made, I'm trying to understand if the very cabinet members that are here, did they have conversations with him in the creation so that all of these changes and all of these amendments and all these things they're saying is wrong with the document could have been altered before it was given to us? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Senator, this is Commissioner Encarnacion from the Department of Health. I'll
Yes.
begin by saying that indeed you do hear a lot of recommendations coming forward towards the bill. In my testimony in particular, I did ask for the indulgence of the senators, as it is definitely a fluid, fast, evolving bill. It's something that we've been waiting for a long time. So yes, discussions have been had, but I think that along with the research, with the experts that you have on the panel today, along with community members, it is actually something that it provides us an opportunity to share our ideas even further and to better build upon the bill. And even the governor and his office recognizes that it's going to take a few turnarounds before we actually come to a conclusion of the bill, but that it is a critical bill to help us to get to where we need to be in terms of managing the behavioral crisis of the VI. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Commissioner Kazi Gomez. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
I kind of want to Good afternoon. This is Commissioner Kazi Gomez. I think that this is a really great start, and I do. It's an enormous bill, but it gives us a good platform, a good starting place. And so I think that presenting it to this body, even though it's not in its perfection or perfect form, is still a good place to start with the discussion. So for me and for Human Services, I'm happy to at least have the honest conversation with you, Senator.
Thank you. Well, I want to say something before I jump into my questions quickly. You know, I do agree that it's a pretty extensive bill, and I think it's an excellent start. But I also think as an elected official, I too should have had the opportunity to really indulge in all the testimony that's here and recognized and really had an opportunity to go back and research and look at some of these ideas that you guys have shared today. One of the things that concerns me as a senator in this institution, this is my first term here, is I am consistently inundated with testimony and information during the time that I'm sitting here. And I don't know if it's a responsibility or a fault of us as the first branch of government to make sure that some of this information is provided to us, whether even 24 hours or 72 hours beforehand. But in order for me to do the very best on behalf of the people of this territory, all of this information that was popping up today while I was sitting here, I'm just requesting, even through the chair of many of these committees, that we do be provided this information in advance. And I know as testifiers, you come before this body, and I have heard prior that it's a lot of work, but some of you had 3 weeks to prepare and give us this information. And it's a disadvantage to me and to the people of this territory to be getting this information literally sitting here on the floor. One of the things I want to ask quickly when it comes to Commissioner Brooks, are you there? I think it's the Assistant Commissioner. Is he still here?
Yes, good
Hi,
morning,
how are you?
Senator. Good afternoon, my apologies. I'm still here.
Your testimony, page 2, number 1. I want to ask a question. Why does the VIPD doesn't have policies in place as it relates to that? How do you deal with the procedures in recognizing individuals that have disabilities or developmental issues when you're dealing with them?
Well, as mentioned in my testimony, VIPD, we do not arrest persons for mental capacity issues. We simply escort them, take them to the hospital as outlined for treatment. Once they're identified, we receive a listing from the Department of Human Services of those bodies. So, Nicole.
Mr. Chair, I can't hear him. He's cutting off.
Please hold the senator's time. Assistant Commissioner, if you get a little bit closer to your mic and if you could minimize moving your head so much and just speak directly into the mic. Every time you shift, it kind of cuts off.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
We can.
Yes,
you may proceed with responding.
Okay, yes. Yes, as mentioned, Senator, in my testimony, the VIPD, we do not arrest persons for mental disabilities. So there is no specific policy standing out. Again, we're open to suggestions. That was the purpose. We assume that we know that is the purpose of this hearing, so we can dialogue and identify ways that we can perfect addressing this issue. This is something new for all of us. Again, so this is an opportunity for us to dialogue at this level and identify ways and gaps that we have that we can address and best, as you said, support those in the community. So we always welcome your advice and support accordingly in this healthy discussion.
Well, thank you so much for that. I kind of ran out of time, but I will pick up on the other rounds. Thank you.
Senator, do you have a follow-up question that you'd like to ask at this time?
Well, I wanted to understand a little bit more in regards to when we took a tour of some of these facilities, the correctional facility, for example, over in St. Croix with the director Testamark. One of the things I had noticed that there were individuals, even with mental disabilities, moving around and intermingling freely. Have they found any issues in regards to keeping a balance or keeping them separated from the population? Or is that something that they normally do? And the reason why I know this is because one of the individuals that was there, I was a victim of a crime by this individual. So as I spoke to him and I said, hey, do you remember me? And he did say, aren't you the young lady who I broke into her property? And I'm literally feet away from him. And he said, but you were always nice to me. And the reason I was nice to him is because I recognized that even though he committed a crime, he was dealing with a mental disability. And as much as I tried to help him through his mother and call the different agencies, I see him in prison now. So I was wondering what type of help people such as himself is getting when it comes to mental disabilities and being inside of prison at the same time.
Very well. I'll have the director of Testamark respond to that.
You there?
Director, you seem like you might be on mute.
Yeah, we can't hear her.
I'm sorry. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead and
Yes,
respond.
we can.
Sorry
Go
about
ahead.
that. Yes, those individuals in which the senator is speaking of, they're in a segregated unit and they're locked down for their own protection, so that others don't prey on them. However, the individuals that's on the mental health caseload that's in the jail, yes, they do get the care that they need. We have psychiatrists not on staff but on contract, and we also have mental health counselor and professionals that's there to assist them.
Okay, the question I was asking is because the individual that was in the prison, if you have ever, I'm not going to call his name, but he does have a mental issue and he was moving around the prison freely. He was not under lockdown and he has a very long, extensive rap sheet, and he is a perfect example of individuals that go into prison and the prison released him because they cannot really house him. So I'm trying to understand what was the difference now with him being incarcerated as opposed to let go about 15 times before because of his mental issue, and is he getting the type of help? How do we deal with them? Because he clearly was not under lockdown.
Right. And it's funny that you said that because the goal is not to keep them locked down. The goal is to give them the help that they need, medicate them. When you think through, the individual apparently is medicated and he's manageable. So once they're manageable, there's no need for us to keep them locked down. They are allowed to come out. They're allowed to watch TV and intermingle with others.
Well, I'm glad you added that because initially when you said they were under lockdown, I was a little confused. But thank you so much for the clarity. Appreciate
You're welcome.
it.
You'll have another opportunity, Senator, that you could drill down further in the next round.
Point of personal privilege before testimony, please.
You recognize.
Thank you. As a member of this institution for about 22 years, I have formed quite a bit of relationships and friendships over the years, and I would like to extend condolences to one of our employees, Ms. Turnbull Carty, on the passing of her father earlier this week. But I also want to take this time out to extend condolences to the family and friends of one of our former employees that have worked here for over 20 years, Miss Angela Spencer, that passed away day before yesterday of cancer. For those of you that have known Miss Spencer over the years and have known of her battle with cancer, I, as one of her very close and personal friends, have been a little bit somber for the last few days because as she knew her time was coming, she did attempt to return home to the territory day before yesterday, but on her way and at her attempt to get in the car, she could not make it. Unfortunately, she passed later that evening. And as I was on the phone with her children, awaiting the nurse to come to decide whether to check her vitals to make sure if this was her final passing, I paused because I was a little bit saddened because here was a Virgin Islander that had to leave her home to live away for several years just to get cancer treatment. And all she wanted to do was pass away at her home, and she couldn't do it. And I want to say condolences to her and her family, but I think even as a member of this specific committee, I hope that we could do something to help those with cancer in our territory, whether it's to make sure we have a facility running during this time we're deciding on what to do with the Charlotte Kimmerman Center or whatever the case is, to make sure some of these individuals can be at home, because a lot of them don't want to leave their territory and they don't want to leave their friends and family. So I just wanted to express my condolences for that.
Thank you very much for that, Senator. We also have in the St. Croix district a former employee of the legislature, Lexter DJ Porter, that passed away as well yesterday. And, that circumstances with that scenario where he may have suffered an asthma attack as well and was being rushed to the emergency room when this occurred also presents some challenges. So I know that healthcare continue to be in a crisis mode right here, but we're making every effort, and our oversight here in this committee will continue to be of such that we'll try to do everything possible to make sure that all of these issues are brought to the forefront, and we work collectively as all branches of government, and to really support the executive branch in addressing the healthcare situation that we find ourselves in. So it continues to be saddening as you hear of all of the individuals that's passing on under this COVID-19 time, but more importantly, again, here in the territory, it's burdensome, when you start to go down that road. So, I express my condolences to those individuals you spoke about, Ms. Cartes, as well as her father, as well as Alexa Porter, and all of those others that have passed on recently. So, as well as Freco Man yesterday, I attended his funeral. Mr. Brown, I attended that funeral as well yesterday. So, there's some difficult time. You're recognized for your 3 minutes at this time, Senator Heyliger.
Francis Heyliger, thank you so much. I would like to quickly ask a question of VI Bar Association. Are they still here? Miss?
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. The question I wanted to ask, since receiving information about this act, has the Bar Association done any type of review in regards to maybe a relative act in a different jurisdiction or various jurisdictions to see if this act is somewhat on par as to what the modern or national trend is?
I do not know if the committee actually went and checked other locations and other jurisdictions. However, I know that they went through and did an extensive review. I can follow up with you on that, and we can do a nationwide search to determine whether or not this bill tracks language that is used in other locations. We often do that here on a number of matters, and in fact, our Supreme Court requires that if there's some new issues that does not have historical backgrounds here. So I can certainly follow up with you on that, and we can provide that information.
That. And this is also for you as well. I know in conversing here with the VIPD and them stressing that they don't have a policy specifically with dealing with people with mental issues, the question I want to ask you, has the Bar Association, or do you guys have any recommendations for them as to how to deal with that? Because it's kind of interesting to hear if they commit a crime, we arrest them, or if it's not the case, we drop them off to the hospital. But at the end of the day, with somebody that has mental challenges, clearly there might be some type of extenuating interaction in even trying to arrest them. Are there any things that you guys might recommend to them to assist with this? Because clearly if this bill does not pass today or tomorrow or 6 months from now, they need to have some policy in place to deal with them.
I think that's a wonderful question. I have actually had some specific dealings with the police departments in Galveston, Texas, on a matter that I had represented some individuals in. And as I mentioned briefly in my testimony, that particular location has a very large homeless population, which, as we've all heard today, oftentimes is suffering from mental illness. That particular police department has I believe they called it the Mental Health Task Force. And those individuals were police officers who were at an investigator level and who had training, either undergraduate training or I forget exactly what their level of training was, but it often was either in psychology, psychiatry, and so forth. And so I can certainly have our group and or I can personally reach out to that particular group and find out what training they offered to their police officers. I will tell you that in that scenario, as an attorney, having those mental health officers, mental health task force, was invaluable in the situation that we were dealing with, because those officers were able to tell the difference between someone who was acting in a way that was obviously provocative, that was in any other circumstance would have clearly be considered an aggressive behavior, but because they had that training, they were able to let a lot of the issues just sort of roll off of them, because they understood that the individual was coming from a place of mental illness as opposed to being aggressive toward the officer. And that would be a tough thing to do if you don't have that training. So I can reach out and circle back and at least find out what training that particular group does. At least I can tell you I've seen it and it worked.
Okay,
so
thank you.
That's as far as I
so
can
much
provide. Thank you.
And that was very important to me, because we've seen, and I've even witnessed some situations where, because officers don't have that training, some situations have escalated, and even nationally we've heard of individuals dying because someone with mental illness was approached or assumed it was a different situation other than someone. So the training is critical to dealing with them. Mr. Chair, could I just ask one more question and I should wrap up?
Yes, you may wrap up.
Thank you so much. This question has to do directly with the bill, and it's on page 48, 48, section 1030. And across from it on section 1030-49, it speaks to rehospitalization. And it speaks to if any patient needs to be rehospitalized, there are two different ways it could be done. And this has to do with people that are involuntarily committed. And for some reason, when their time is up, if the director of the behavioral health treatment facility or the commissioner, they can recommend to keep that person there. And it also goes on to speak to dealing with individuals that have been in there, but they have not voluntarily agreed to the stay. Now, if you approve that someone has to stay inside, how do you deal with it? Do you contact family? And how long is this process going to take? Is it until you guys feel that they're okay? Or does it step into a situation where you can contact family and see, do they have a say in the matter at some point? Because reading it here, it only speaks to the commissioner and the director of behavioral health.
This is who's taking us in the Commissioner of Health.
Yes.
We actually spoke to that and we edited that portion of the bill. So right now, it is actually looked at as the 721, which is a voluntary committal, 722, and which is the involuntary committal, and then 723 is the extension of the 722. That's what we're looking at currently. The 1020, 1021 actually is truly mimics what we're doing right now, with a little expansion and inclusion of some of the aspect of what we really need to be placed in the bill. And so it's not the Commissioner of Health that makes the decision, but it's actually a team of certified individuals who actually make the recommendation. Of course, the psychiatrist then takes that to court to extend the stay at that point in time, leading to a 1020 or as we do right now, a 723. Court actually also reviews that. That person is placed into custody if that need be. And then we have a monthly review of those cases, and we are continuing to do that. We meet with the judges on a continuous basis. So it's not something that's just laid to rest. It's something that's actually managed on a continuous basis.
Thank you very much, Senator Francis Heyliger. Thank you very much.